everyone. Welcome to Avaya University and our Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal curriculum. I'm Mike Allen, and this is my partner, Ande Anderson. We're the founders of Avaya and the online communities, Enlightenment Village, and A Course in Miracles Village.
Today's teaching from Avaya University and John Amodeo explores healing and self-transformation after a betrayal. You will discover two kinds of agreements that are often broken, which can be experienced as betrayals. You'll discover the skills and awareness you need to have less betrayal and more trust in your life, and how to deal with a betrayal without getting stuck and feeling like a victim. All of these insights and more are in this powerful class from Avaya University and John Amodeo. We hope you enjoy, apply the insights in your life, and share them with your community.
And from all of us at Avaya, enjoy your journey, and thanks for letting us be part of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal. I am your co-host, Ande Anderson. I am the co-founder of Avaya Media and Enlightenment Village with my partner, Ike Allen. Thank you so much for joining us again. And in this event, as you know, we are talking with therapists. We're talking with doctors, authors, and relationship experts, and they're sharing with us tools and strategies to help us let go of experiences of abandonment and betrayal so that we can live really peaceful, empowered lives. And today our guest is going to talk about healing and self-transformation after a betrayal. So please welcome Dr. John Amodeo. Hi, John.
Hello, good to see you again.
It's great to see you again. We had you on our Healthy Relationships Conference not long ago, and I'm so excited to have you back and dive into another really great topic. And I want to share with everyone a little bit about you and your work before we do that. So John has been a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 35 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. He is the author of Love and Betrayal, Broken Trust in Intimate Relationships. And we're going to be talking about that book throughout the interview. And his other books include The Authentic Heart and Dancing with Fire. He was a writer and contributing editor for Yoga Journal for 10 years. And he has conducted workshops internationally on relationships and couples therapy. He has also conducted workshops and lectured at universities internationally on relationships and couples therapy, and has appeared on many TV and radio programs, including CNN, Donahue, and New Dimensions Radio. He is also a blogger for Psych Central and has a popular blog column with Psychology Today titled Intimacy, A Path Towards Spirituality. So, John, I need to catch my breath, first of all. lots of accomplishments in your career. Let's dive into this. So, when we hear the word betrayal, I think a lot of people usually think about, right, a partner has cheated on us, sexual infidelity, that kind of stuff. But I know in your book, which is titled Love and Betrayal, you talk about other kinds of betrayals. So can you share about that?
Yeah, that's usually the big one that people think about when they think of betrayal as infidelity, and it certainly is a big one. And but there are varieties of betrayals that I write about. When you might feel like you're being abandoned, like you're in a committed, so-called committed relationship, and person decided to leave, making a unilateral decision to leave the relationship might be felt as a betrayal. Or there could be things like gossiping about you. I see that as kind of a betrayal, like vicious gossip about somebody. Or another, even more subtle kind of betrayal is not being authentic in a relationship. Deception is a big kind of betrayal. Small lies can lead to big breaches of trust in relationships. So there's many different ways a person might feel betrayed.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Cause definitely, surely most people probably watching right now and signed up for this event. If they've had a betrayal, it might be that, right. That big one, right. The cheating or, some kind of infidelity. So, but it is really important to take a look at all those different kinds.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So my next question for you is another thing that you talk about in your work is two kinds of agreements that are often broken in relationships. So, and these can be experienced as a betrayal. So what are these two kinds of agreements?
Right. So what I write about is there's breaking spoken agreements, and those are usually the ones we think about when trust is broken. We committed ourselves to a relationship, to a partnership, maybe to a marriage, and we want to get out of the marriage, or we commit ourselves to being monogamous in the relationship and the person has an affair. So that's breaking a spoken agreement. But there are these more subtle, unspoken agreements that can be broken. An unspoken agreement, we might not go into a relationship and say, hey, we're not going to abuse each other now, are we? That's an unspoken agreement. We take that for granted. We're not going to be physically or emotionally abusive. So that can be a betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. We may or may not say to each other, okay, we're going to really be committed to being honest, to being authentic in this relationship, right? It's kind of assumed person's going to be honest with us. It becomes an unspoken agreement. We're going to be authentic. We're not going to deceive each other. But as we know, deception kind of creeps into relationships if we're not really mindful and conscious and conscientious about how to conduct ourselves in a relationship. So that can be a subtle breach of trust. There might be withholding communication. We might not communicate our deeper feelings. I mean, that could be breaking an unspoken agreement that we're going to be forthcoming and honest and communicative with each other. We're going to share from our inner world with each other. So there's many different kinds of ways we can breach trust in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And it's important, I think, like those little agreements that, might not seem like some huge deal. Like it's like a million tiny cuts, right? If there's like many different little broken agreements over time, like I'm going to meet you at this time and I don't, and it just goes on and on and on. It definitely can become a big wound in a relationship if it's not addressed or healed. So that does bring me to actually healing from a betrayal or an abandonment. So how do you suggest, our viewers, a lot of people obviously have signed up for this event because they've had an abandonment or they've had many instances of abandonment or betrayal in their lives. So how do we recover from such a painful experience? And also, are there different stages people go through as they're getting over this?
Yeah, the key thing, and it's easier said than done, is to really be gentle with ourselves and to really honor what we're actually experiencing from the betrayal. Not to think we should be over this quickly, because these feelings can linger for a long time. And we're really feeling that our heart has been damaged, has been wounded by this betrayal. So we need to give ourselves a lot of permission to take our time, be really gentle with the full range of our feelings. And usually there's some kind of, I wouldn't call them stages because it's not so linear, but there are different phases people can go through. Like at first there can be this shock, the sense of shock or even denial that this is happening. Like the reality rug gets pulled out from under us and we don't know what hit us. Our whole sense of reality gets undermined. Maybe, especially if we've heard about a betrayal that's been going on for a long time, months or even years, and we suddenly hear about it. It's like, my God, I've been living according to one set of assumptions, and this thing's been going on without my awareness. It's just like a total shock to your system.
Right.
So it takes time for that to even out, for that to mellow out, for that to calm down a little bit. And then after that, people will get into an anger stage. It's kind of similar in some ways to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grieving that she talked about. But she also says it's not a sequential thing, but it can be helpful to be aware. So people can become really angry. And you can, even at this stage, you get stuck in vengeance. We just want to really get back at the person. And it's not recommended.
No.
I mean, it's important to give yourself permission to be angry. That's really important to say. Anger is a really natural reaction. But if you act it out by getting vengeful, acting things out in a really destructive way, it's only going to end up hurting you more. It's kind of like the saying that, like, you're drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right. Yes.
It really can damage you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So if you really take time and, just let the anger be there without acting it out in a destructive way, you might notice more subtle, vulnerable feelings underneath, like sadness. And that's an important part of the grieving process, that you're feeling hurt, you're feeling sad, feeling vulnerable. So to give yourself full permission to be vulnerable, be friendly, warm, gentle toward those vulnerable feelings, it's a really important way to heal. Share it with people you trust, with friends, maybe a therapist. And part of the healing is to share, not just to keep it all inside, where it really eats away at you. Mm-hmm. So to be able to talk about it, to heal. And, and if it's a partner who really wants to work on healing the relationship, then there's a whole other conversation about how to work that out with your partner. To talk about, do you really want to be in this relationship? Is it really something you want to work on? And then there's a whole set of processes the two of you need to engage in chief among them being listening, really listening to each other's feelings,
Right.
especially the one who feels betrayed. Needs a lot of time to repeatedly talk about their sense of betrayal, their pain, and the person who's betrayed you really has to hang in there and be patient and really listen and honor your feelings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And, some of our audience are, single people who have gone through past relationships breaking up because of betrayals or abandonment and that kind of stuff. And then there are also people who are in relationships currently and have experienced things, or maybe they just have a lot of past abandonment issues from their childhood and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of trauma from their past often.
Yeah, that actually, I have a question about that. My parents, for example, and I'm sure many people could relate on some level, my dad cheated on my mom several times over the course of their marriage. And when I was 9, he eventually left the marriage and went on to marry another woman, the woman he was having an affair with. So for people who have had that modeling experience, right, in their life, they've seen their parents go through cheating and then abandonment and that kind of stuff. So how do people not repeat that pattern, right? I see a lot of people repeating the pattern, trying to understand their parents and why they chose the way that they did, and then end up ruining their own relationships. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's a really big and good question. That gets modeled, that kind of gets normalized in your history, and it never gets processed probably in your family, probably never gets talked about. The pain that's involved never gets talked about. So it all gets hidden, it gets compartmentalized. And so you can be growing up with a lot of pain. Maybe we could even call it some trauma from that kind of experience. For example, if you see your mother really hurting, but she's keeping it inside because she feels betrayed, she doesn't want to upset the children, so it's all like a secret. It's either a family secret or it's an open secret.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't get processed. It doesn't get discussed how everybody feels about it. So you grow up in an environment where feelings don't get processed. You don't know how to talk about your feelings. You don't know how to communicate from your vulnerability. So, it takes even, therapy can be really helpful for that, to learn how to talk about your feelings, how to access them, how to be mindful of your vulnerable feelings and find the courage to be able to express them going forward in your relationship life. You can really start fresh and make a commitment to yourself that I'm going to be authentic, forthcoming, honest in my relationships, talk about my feelings, and learn how to build trust with somebody. I mean, if you want a monogamous relationship, you need to learn how to build trust so that we're really committed to this process of deepening with each other. There's no guarantees where it's going to lead, but we can be committed to a process where we are willing to be authentic, show our true heart to each other, our authentic heart to each other, and allow trust to build and grow so that we can never totally eliminate it, but we minimize the possibility of betrayal.
Awesome. Yeah, I think your point of just the simplicity, and yet at the same time, sometimes it can be really hard, but to talk about our feelings, to bring that into, so people watching right now, if this is a scenario of your past that you have brought into relationships, or you're afraid you might, talk about it, right? Talk about it with your partner. Talk about it if don't have a partner, talk about it with friends, but or therapy, right? And somebody that you could, be open and vulnerable with, because once we get those feelings out, right, it makes a world of difference in our lives.
Yeah, to embrace that vulnerable feeling, it might lead to what's called insecure attachment. There's different attachment styles people have, like where you're not really sure, is this person going to leave me? Are they going to abandon me or betray me like my father did or mother did? So it can lead to some insecurity in relationships. So it's good to acknowledge that. And as you build trust with a new partner, to talk about it, to talk about some of your pre-existing vulnerabilities and just make that clear. And then notice how that's being received.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you I appreciate you addressing that issue. It's something I've wondered about in my life. And I know that a lot of people also have similar scenarios. So here's a question, if someone watching right now has been betrayed, right? Let's say it was a sexual infidelity or something very significant in their relationship, right? How do we go about healing without being the victim, right? If we get too wrapped up into, right, being the victim in our lives, my experience is we don't really have much power, right? It's hard to be empowered and be a victim at the same time. So how do we go about that? If we have had this experience of betrayal, how do we not be a victim?
Yeah, it's a really important question because, we can use betrayal, the term betrayal is like a pickaxe to hit our partner over the head with it. and just kind of feel like nothing ever works for me. We can develop kind of a core belief that relationships aren't for me. There's no good men out there, no good women out there. And we can just kind of shut down inside and close up inside, get depressed, or remain anxious about it all. So, so being a victim isn't going to serve us, obviously. I mean, we get some gratification from it, maybe by clinging to that identity of being a victim, but ultimately it's pretty empty, pretty unfulfilling. It's not going to get us anywhere in life. So what we need to learn how to do is take responsibility. Learn from our experience, maybe learn from other people's experience too, as much as possible. Like, it didn't work for our parents to do that. I don't want to do that in my life. And deal with the shame. Sometimes we don't know how to deal with our shame, and the sense of humiliation that can come from a betrayal. So instead of softening into those vulnerable feelings and that shame, we can transfer the shame to others, blame them. We're the victim, they're the bad person. Mm-hmm. So transfer our unwanted shame, our uncomfortable feelings onto them and make them uncomfortable, make them shift the pain that we're not able to be with onto them. So there's a big difference between self-blame and responsibility. So let me say a little bit about that, because it's hard to take responsibility for our part. Well, first, it's sometimes just betrayals come out of the blue, and just, we were like really authentic. We were doing our best. And sometimes we had some role to play in the betrayal. And that can be a really hard thing to look at.
Right.
That doesn't forgive doesn't excuse the other person for their sexual infidelity, but maybe we co-created an environment that led them to act out their pain in that way. For example, I worked with one couple, and the man said, I was always good at arguing. I was never good at just listening to her feelings. So he was very attached to being right. They would argue. He wouldn't listen to her, wouldn't listen to her feelings. So finally she went out and she had an affair. So that's not to, excuse the affair, but if you look at it as like a co-created process in some way, they created a climate where she didn't feel very safe. She didn't feel loved. She didn't feel wanted. She didn't feel intimate with him because he wasn't present for her, wasn't there with her and hearing her feelings and her needs. So she felt totally exasperated, and she went out and had an affair. Mm-hmm. So if he can take responsibility for that and say, I helped co-create that. I had my part in that, and I feel bad that I wasn't present for her. And the problem is, people often, they get so stuck in shame, like to take any responsibility for their part just brings them up against their shame. Like, because we don't want to see ourselves as a bad person or having done anything wrong. And it's not that we're a bad person, it's that we're a human person. We had some blind spots. We just didn't know how to listen well. We were so attached to being right. Maybe we weren't able to extend our attention into their world because we so quickly would blame ourselves if there's any problem in the relationship. So that's a wake-up call for him. It's a wake-up call for the relationship to conduct ourselves with more awareness. Mm-hmm. And look at our part and take responsibility. If we're so consumed and paralyzed by shame, we're not going to take any responsibility. The shame's going to get us. It's going to just grip us so tightly. We're not going to want to be able to, we're not going to say, I'm sorry, I really apologize for that. I have some responsibility in that, and I really feel bad about that. We're not going to soften into any kind of vulnerable expression like that. We're going to just hold on tightly, stay the victim, and get stuck in blaming the other person.
That's all such gold right there. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And yeah, it can be a challenge too. I mean, myself included, definitely, right? Not allowing yourself to get so wrapped up in self-blame and shame and going down that like shame spiral, as opposed to taking responsibility, which is a completely different experience. So I love it. Thank you.
It's a real rabbit hole that a lot of people go down into. They just go, and they're not even aware that they're in shame, because shame is such a powerful emotion. It just grips us, and it's so painful to feel any shame, but it's so accelerating of our growth when we can acknowledge, okay, that's shame. Okay, since like I'm defective, I'm flawed, I'm feeling bad about myself. We can open to that because we all have shame in us. People who have shame are often in denial of their shame. And those become the people, even the politicians who insist that they're always right. They're never able to say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. because they're so brittle. Their ego is so brittle and fragile. They're not able to recognize when they've done something unskillful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It takes tremendous strength. It takes a lot of inner strength to acknowledge responsibility. Be able to say, I was wrong about something. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, okay. So we're talking a lot about, right, like how really betrayal, dealing with a betrayal can be transformative from what, from what you're saying. So could you share a little bit more about that, right? Like how can having what is not a fun experience, right, of being betrayed or let's say being abandoned, how can this help us grow, right? How can it be a transformative experience?
Yes, and it's important to acknowledge that it's not a pleasant
Yeah.
experience. It's an equal opportunity misfortune, though. Everybody, at some point in their life, most people experience a betrayal. So if people are out there listening, know you're not alone. Everyone has dealt with this or will be dealing with it if they haven't. It's really hard to avoid in life. So what was your question again?
I was just saying, like, could you talk a little bit more really about like how we can transform after having such an experience like that?
Yeah. Well, you could transform internally, and the relationship might get transformed if you're really both committed to repairing the broken trust. If a bone is broken, after it heals, it's stronger than it was originally.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship can become stronger in the broken places. It can be a wake-up call for the relationship to look at things that you both haven't looked at before.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can learn things about yourself. Like I was saying earlier, did you have some role? Did you contribute to the relationship? Maybe you broke some unspoken agreements. Maybe there was some deception, maybe you weren't really listening clearly and your partner just felt so exasperated. So it could help you transform in that you become more awake to your shadow part, the shadow side of your being, things that you haven't wanted to face and see, that you've compartmentalized and pushed away because they were too painful to see about yourself. So you can courageously open to those blind spots, those dark places, those shadowy places in yourself, and become more of a whole person, more of an integrated person, by looking at your own shortcomings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about awareness, right? Like, so what kind of skills and what kind of awareness do we need to have less betrayal and more trust in our lives, right? Like, how do we need to be more aware so that we're more trusting and we're not experiencing like multiple betrayals one after another?
Right. So this really takes as a deep and sincere commitment to yourself, to your own personal growth. That word gets so overused. So what do we mean by it? Really committed. Often we want other people to be committed to us, but we're not very committed to ourselves. So
Yes.
commitment is a tricky thing. So being committed to yourself, to your own growth, means really being willing to uncover your actual felt experience. There's a process called focusing that I love to use in my therapy practice and in my own personal life. Just slowing down. It's similar to mindfulness, meditation practice. You just slow down, you go inside, and notice how you're feeling in your body, kind of getting out of your head, how you think things are or should be, and you're dropping down into your actual bodily felt experience. And you're feeling sad or hurt by something a friend said or a partner said. You're feeling maybe afraid, maybe some shame came up with what somebody said to you. So really fully acknowledging what's authentically being felt inside. So mindfulness, awareness, and then presence with yourself. And then finding the courage to express that to people who you want to be close to. You can't feel connected and intimate with someone who you're not authentically communicating with and sharing your true vulnerable feelings and your needs and your wants. You keep all that inside, there's no way to be intimate. So the path here is to create a climate where intimacy can happen. We can't control love, we can't control intimacy like so many people try to do. You can't shake your partner's shoulders and say, you got to be committed to me, I need you to be more committed. What you need to do is create a climate where your partner wants to come toward you. So there's a natural evolution of the connection. So the commitment to each other flows out of being committed to being authentic with yourself and with your partner. Kind also, communication that's respectful and kind, not attacking and blaming and shaming of the other person. So that's a whole skill to develop. Maybe you probably know Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication method is an excellent thing for people to learn. And It's very easily accessible through books and workshops to learn that skill and to bring forward that our inner life. Your potential partner or your partner's bringing forward their inner life, and you're creating a beautiful climate for intimacy to grow. And you're going to stay together because you want to be together. It just feels so rich and satisfying and fulfilling. You wouldn't even think of leaving. I mean, that's the kind of relationship I invite and encourage people to try to create. Not when we are pressuring people, trying to control each other, but what is it going to take for me to really be vulnerably present in this relationship, share authentically from my heart, express what I need and want in a skillful way, kind way, and do my part to create a beautiful relationship. So that's what we can learn. That's how we can transform through the betrayal. We can finally commit ourselves to learning these deeper skills, read what we need to read, maybe see a therapist, maybe see a couples therapist if we're in a relationship that needs help, and learn things that we never learned growing up because the society doesn't teach us how to do this. We don't get encouraged to show our authentic self, just the opposite. We get encouraged to build a false self, to create an image that we're trying to protect and maintain and project into the world or project into our relationship. You know, the smart person or the wealthy person or the competent person or the funny person, whatever image we're trying to promote, instead of just letting down our guard, just being ourselves and realizing that's the powerful thing that's going to really create the intimacy, the love, and the connection that we're longing for.
Love it. Thank you so much. That's awesome. And I love that you touch on, right, the experience, the beingness, the like space we need to create around us so that that partner of ours wants to come to us, right? If we're more committed to ourselves and our own personal growth and taking care of ourselves and loving ourselves, then it's just it becomes an attraction to the other person because we're doing that.
That's right. And we become attractive instead of physically trying to make ourselves more attractive, which doesn't hurt to do that. But how we're really going to become attractive is to cultivate our internal beauty, which comes from showing our true heart, our true self to each other. And that makes us more attractive. That makes the connection much more compelling. People come toward us when we're authentic, not when we're trying to project some image or be right all the time, or try to be smart or whatever, or be in control. So yeah, that's the key thing. We can't control the course of love, but what we do have control over is creating conditions where love and intimacy are more likely to arise and deepen. That's a tough one for people to get.
Yeah.
Ego wants to clamp down and just kind of control it all.
Right.
But we need practices, like meditation, yoga, things that help us, focusing that I mentioned, things that help us just slow down, pause, slow down, go inside, take some time, be with ourselves, and cultivate practices that help us deepen into our own being. Sometimes it's called self-soothing, be connected to ourselves, and becoming more of an awake person, more alive within ourselves, more awake to our actual experience. That can include humor, can include a lot of humor. We don't take ourselves so seriously. That's can be a really important part of the process. I grew up in New York, this New York humor that people often don't understand. So
I appreciate it. Ike is from Vermont, so he's got the Northeast, humor, all kind of in that same realm. And we're very, goofy and sarcastic and love to bring that into our lives.
Silliness can be really a helpful part of our vulnerability and our authenticness.
Absolutely.
Showing our silly side.
Yep.
Practice of letting go of control too. It can be useful.
Right. Absolutely.
Not take myself too seriously.
Yep. You got it. No,
all these pieces coming together, really, it's a lifetime project, obviously, but and most people who are listening have probably been on this path already, but it's helpful to fine tune it and to keep being inspired on that path and to get the support we need from friends or whomever to help us stay on this path and deepen into it. So even if we're not in a relationship, probably a lot of people listening aren't and want to be. Maybe some people are listening who are in a relationship and don't want to be in it. So all kinds of suffering that's possible in our life. But being alone can also be a time to cultivate a positive sense of solitude. Find practices, find resources that are helpful for you. Whatever it is, meditation or walks in nature or art or music or gardening or going to the gym, things that really kind of help us feel good. To cultivate friendships apart from just clinging to one partner, expecting them to meet all of our needs, and extend ourselves to find friends, people who care about us and we can talk to openly and honestly. That's so rich to be able to do that. So periods of being single can be really helpful for cultivating our life, cultivating our other relationships, maybe
Mm-hmm.
cultivating our work, doing work that we love.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember my bouts of singledom in my life, and I remember how important it was for me to really build a relationship with myself, and how important that was, and how it obviously doing so, right, led to stronger relationship with my partner Ike, and all of that. It's definitely very key.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that, bouts of singledom. That's great.
just randomly said that, and there it is.
Exciting.
So here's a question that I know a lot of people struggle with, and it's something that I have definitely struggled with in my life, really before my relationship with Ike. But I think a lot of us who have had a past abandonment, like let's say childhood or a betrayal in a past relationship, we often tell ourselves, well, the next person's just going to abandon me. The next person's just going to cheat on me, right? And we go into it and literally create like this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And recreate the scenario over and over again. So what kind of suggestions would you have for people who are becoming aware that they're creating these patterns of abandonment and betrayal in their life? Like, how can we get up out of that?
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's such a hard thing for people to see, how we create the very thing that we're afraid of through our fear. Fear is so powerful; it just grabs us, and we start looking. I mean, our brain is conditioned that way. We kind of look for the things that can get us. The amygdala, the part of the brain that scans for danger. It's always looking for things that are going awry. We can always find problems. We can always find things that aren't going so well and amplify them, and they become these huge things. Like somebody's looking at somebody else in a restaurant, and we think, oh, they must be attracted to that person more than they're attracted to me. I knew they weren't really attracted to me. And we build this whole story about it, right?
Right.
Sure, we all, have our attention randomly goes out to the people who are in our environment. Maybe we find somebody who is a little attractive. It doesn't have to be a big deal, right? But it can be made into a big deal. And then we say, you're staring at that woman over there. What? I'm not staring at any. Yes, I saw you looking at her. She's an attractive woman, and after a while, the guy just has enough. He doesn't want to take it anymore, right? These false accusations, so he ends up leaving the relationship, right? To kind of soothe ourselves, if you have anxiety about something, say it in a skillful way. When you were looking at that woman, it brought up some insecurity and fear in me. I wondered if you were attracted to her. I felt maybe I'm not attractive enough to you. Maybe that's kind of silly, but that's what came up for me, and I just wanted to share that with you. And that part said, "Oh no, I was, I didn't. Maybe I looked at her. I didn't really even notice, but yes, maybe she's attractive. I don't know, but no, I'm with you. I want to be with you. That's nothing. I wasn't doing anything bad there or doing anything wrong. Anyway, I think you get the point. Yeah. So this is to talk about it in a vulnerable way, not in an accusing kind of way, and be open to the possibility that you could have a wonderful relationship. There needs to be a change in one's mindset. The word positive thinking gets overused, but in this pitfall, just thinking too positively, you want to also include the shadow, but to be open to positive possibilities is the way I would say it. That good things can happen to you. So you're kind of rewriting the storyline of your life. Instead of clinging to the old narrative that nothing works out, you're creating a new narrative that, okay, I'm going to move forward in an empowered way, and I'm really open to finding a beautiful relationship, and I really think that's possible for me. In a way where that's more likely to happen, I'm going to take responsibility for my part and do my best to co-create a beautiful relationship.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you diving into that. And yeah, everyone watching, if you do have a current partner, then take that on when you have something that is coming up for you, or maybe you have if you're not very communicative with your partner about this stuff, maybe have a conversation first about, hey, I would love to be able to start communicating things when they come up for me, like if I have a fear or a concern or something, and start doing that. And if you're not in a relationship, then, do it with a friend. If you have, things coming up in a friendship or concerns or whatever, then, get into the practice of being honest and communicative with people. So I love it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, to reveal that, I have some history of feeling insecure in relationships. And maybe at some point when there's enough trust, you can share that. If that comes up, I like to just be able to talk about it, take responsibility for it, and just happening for me, and just maybe I just need a little reassurance sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and John, one of the things, I haven't told you this yet because I like to keep it a secret till near the end, but we're doing, as part of this conference, we're doing every interview we create a challenge for people. So I think that this would be a great challenge for people to, if they're in a relationship, right, start having those conversations with their partner about, how they feel, and taking responsibility. Like you said, that's so key. I want to take responsibility for the fact that I'm worried you're going to leave because my dad left, or something like
Yeah,
that. And,
exactly. Right.
same thing for our single folks, in taking responsibility for something in a different relationship or something. But I think that would be really helpful for everyone to take on that challenge. And we have a Facebook group where people are communicating. So communicate that challenge for everyone, and see how it goes for you, because it's so powerful. I think oftentimes it's really like when we build up a lot of like anxiety around something, because it's so convincing sometimes in our minds, and then we talk about it. So my experience is, it's like putting a pin in it, and all of a sudden it's just like it deflates.
Yeah.
I love it.
And it's so important to get support. We all need that. We can't do this on our own.
No.
We're on our own. One quote someone said that, like, it's a solitary journey that we cannot take alone.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we are coming upon the time of the interview that I want to make sure that everyone knows there is a button below this video, and it leads over to John's book, which is all about love and betrayal. So could you share with us this book? What will they get out of reading this book? What kinds of things do you discuss? And let us know.
Yeah, I've gotten good feedback on this book, Love and Betrayal. It shows a lot of empathy for people who have gone through a betrayal. That's the first thing, is to have a lot of empathy for the processes that you're likely to go through. And so you can notice some of the pitfalls on that path of healing. So you don't fall into those pitfalls. And then in the second part, it's a big section on how to build trust. So we minimize the possibility of betrayal going forward by learning how to build trust in our relationships, either the present one that you're wanting to rebuild or a new one going forward. How you can play a role in fostering a climate that cultivates trust in our relationships. So it's kind of an intimate journey. I'm accompanying people on their path of healing, and guiding them, encouraging them to find their way toward healing, and to empower them to move forward in a more positive way in their life.
I love it. So everyone watching, obviously it sounds like this is for people who are either in a relationship currently and or not in a relationship, but wanting to, work on those trust issues and building trust for the next relationship. Is that correct?
Right, and wanting to heal from a betrayal, whether it's a recent one or one in the past that you haven't fully healed from.
Awesome. Thank
Understand,
you.
How to facilitate that healing.
Yeah. Thank you. So out of curiosity, why did you write this book?
Well, my first book, Being Intimate, came out in 1986, and it's about how to build intimate relationships. And the last chapter was on betrayal, and I didn't have time to amplify it, but it's the shadow side of love and intimacy.
Okay.
So once we deal with the shadow side of love, we're only dealing with half of the equation. I mean, if we just deal with the positive side and not deal with the shadow side, we're not having an integrated approach. So, I've seen a lot of betrayal in with my clients. I felt some betrayals that everyone has in their own personal life. So it just felt like a good medium for condensing my thoughts about it, trying to be helpful to other people going through such a painful experience.
Right.
Because at the time I wrote it, there wasn't much out there on betrayal. It came out in 1994, this book, with Valentine Books. So it was...
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. Well, thank you so much for doing this again. It's always, so awesome to connect with you and hear your insights. And I know everyone watching, I'm sure, has gotten a lot out of this. Are there any last insights? Anything we've missed? Anything you want to wrap up with today?
Yeah, just to encourage people to keep it on, to take your time. The main thing is to really be gentle with ourselves. It's so easy to forget, to pause, to go inside, and that there is, healing is definitely possible. And it just takes really being committed to the path of healing. So now you're in good company, you're not alone in this. And I just wish everybody the best. I wish I could see people that are listening right now and just kind of project some sense of hope in people, or inspiration to do the inner work.
Yes. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And all those watching and listening right now, even though you aren't being seen by us at the moment, I know that you can feel John's words and his commitment to your healing and your intimate relationships. And I really appreciate you, John. And it's always a delight to talk to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And can I mention my website because people can find
Absolutely.
more resources there, which is www.johnamodeo.com. That's JOHNAMODEO, Amodeo at AOL.com. So there's more articles and
Excellent.
links to other interviews and stuff.
Awesome. And we will have a link below this video. In addition to the link that goes over to your book, we'll also have a link to your website so that people can click right through on that and go over and explore your resources. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this latest interview. And we'll see you on the next one. Here is to our journey to breaking free from abandonment and betrayal. Bye, everybody.